My parents gave my brother my room when I moved out for college, saying he needed the space more. They didn't know I just bought my own house. Now they're asking if he can move in with me. Nope, enjoy the couch, bro. I still remember the day I came home from college and found everything had changed. I was a sleep-deprived freshman dragging my suitcase through my parents' front door in Cedar Ridge, thinking only of crashing into my own bed for the first time in months. I kicked off my shoes, yelled, "Mom, Dad, I'm home," and hurried down the hall to my bedroom, or at least, the room that used to be mine. I swung the door open and froze. My posters were gone. My shelves were empty. The comforter I'd had since middle school, the one Grandma stitched for me, was nowhere to be seen. Instead, I saw my kid brother, Brandon, sprawled out on a bed that used to be mine, in a room now painted electric green with his band posters and sports flags plastered on my walls. For a second I thought I'd opened the wrong door, like I'd stepped into an alternate reality where I never existed. A pile of cardboard boxes in the corner caught my eye, my name scrawled on them in Sharpie. Inside were the remnants of my childhood, unceremoniously dumped there. I spotted my high school yearbook sticking out of one box, and the quilt Grandma made me shoved on top of another. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. What the hell? I breathed. My voice was tiny and shaky. Brandon turned, propping himself up on my pillows. He looked guilty for half a second, then actually grinned. "Hey, welcome back, sis," he said, like nothing was wrong. So casual, like this wasn't the ultimate betrayal happening right in front of me. I noticed his gaming laptop open on my desk, now littered with his comic books and empty soda cans. The shelf where my trophies and photos once sat was crammed with his basketball awards and model cars. I just stood there, heart hammering, mouth opening and closing like a fish. Finally I choked out, "Brandon, what? Why are you in my room? Where are my things?" He had the audacity to roll his eyes, as if I were overreacting. "Chill. Mom and Dad said I could have it." "I needed the space more," he replied with a shrug, repeating that cursed line as if it were the most obvious thing ever. Then he laughed, like it was some kind of joke I wasn't in on. Heat rushed to my face. My hands were trembling. "You needed the space more," I repeated, disbelief quickly giving way to rage. "So they just gave you my room? Without even telling me?" Before he could answer, I heard Mom behind me. "Honey, you're home," she exclaimed, trying to sound cheerful as she hurried down the hall. I spun around to see her standing there wringing her hands, Dad hovering behind her. They both looked a little nervous, they knew exactly why I was in shock. "Your room," Mom began, her smile faltering as she peeked over my shoulder at the scene. "We were meaning to call and explain." "Explain what?" I snapped, my voice cracking. I could feel the sting of tears forming, but I refused to let them fall. "That you gave my room to Brandon like it was nothing? When were you going to tell me, before or after I walked in and found out I've been erased from this house?" Dad stepped forward with a frown. "Watch your tone, young lady," he warned. "We had to make some changes after you left. Your brother needed the space more than you did, since you weren't here." My jaw dropped. I didn't need my own bedroom in my parents' house? I'm here now, and I'll be back for holidays and summer. I shot back. Did that not matter? Where am I supposed to sleep? Where's all my stuff? Mom reached for my shoulder, I shrugged her off. My skin was burning. I'd never felt so blatantly cast aside. "Sweetie, calm down," she coaxed. "We packed up your things carefully. They're right here." She gestured to the stack of boxes as if that made it okay. "We figured you wouldn't mind since you have your dorm now. We had to give Brandon more room. He's a growing boy, and he's here full-time while you were off at school. It didn't make sense to leave a big empty room unused." Unused. They thought my room was just wasted space while I was at college, so they reassigned it like an empty parking spot. "So you didn't even ask me? Or warn me?" I shouted. In the corner of my eye, I saw Brandon lurking in the doorway, enjoying the drama. Dad crossed his arms. "We didn't want to bother you at school with little things like this. And this is our house. We have to use the space for the family. Don't be so dramatic, you're only home a few weeks a year now. There's plenty of room for you in the den when you visit. We set up the pull-out couch for you. It's not a big deal." Not a big deal. My throat clenched, I couldn't even speak. My parents stood there looking at me like I was the problem, and my brother leaned against the doorframe smirking. I had never felt so betrayed. I wanted to scream, to curse them out, to break something, but a lump lodged in my throat and I was terrified that if I started yelling I might start sobbing, too. I refused to let them see me break. I swallowed hard and hissed, "Fine, do whatever you want." With that, I spun around, grabbed the nearest box with my name on it, and stormed down the hall. It was so heavy I nearly tripped, but I didn't care. Mom sputtered, "Where are you going? That box has your winter clothes." I lugged the box to the living room and slammed it down by the couch. If the couch was supposed to be my space now, I might as well move in. Adrenaline fueling me, I stomped back and forth from the hallway to the living room, hauling my boxes of belongings while my parents watched in stunned silence. I'm pretty sure I saw Dad pinch the bridge of his nose, like I was giving him a headache. Meanwhile, Brandon had retreated back to the glow of my computer screen, apparently done with this conversation. Each time I marched past with a box, I shot him a death glare. He responded with an infuriating little shrug or an eyebrow raise, like not my fault. By the time I'd moved all my worldly possessions, I was panting from exertion and rage. My eyes were dry now, my anger had burned away any tears. I dumped a final armload of random junk, an old stuffed animal, a few stray books, onto the coffee table. The living room looked like a storage unit. Mom cleared her throat behind me. "We kept your essentials accessible, honey," she offered nervously. "We didn't throw anything away. It's all here." I couldn't even look at her. I didn't trust myself to speak. I just nodded stiffly, my head spinning. This was supposed to be my home. Now I felt like a guest. No, like an afterthought. That night, I slept on the lumpy pull-out couch, staring up at the ceiling in the dark, feeling utterly humiliated and furious. Brandon slept soundly in what used to be my bed down the hall. Every time I thought about it, a fresh wave of anger hit me. Was I really that disposable? Out of sight, out of mind, out of my own room. I blinked back hot tears and listened to the muffled sounds of the TV from my parents' bedroom. They were watching their nightly shows as if nothing was wrong, as if their daughter wasn't lying in the living room because she literally had no bedroom anymore. Something inside me snapped into place. Fine, they'd shown me exactly how much I mattered. I wasn't going to beg for space or make a fuss. They made their choice. They gave my room to my brother and expected me to suck it up. Fine, I'd suck it up now, but I'd also make sure I'd never have to rely on them again. That night on the couch, I decided I was done being second place. And you know what? It wasn't the first time I'd been sidelined for my brother. I'm 2 years older than Brandon. My parents had me young, and I guess they always wanted a son. When my little brother came along, they finally got their boy, and from then on it felt like everything was about him. I became an afterthought. Growing up in Cedar Ridge, our Dallas suburb, I was constantly asked to compromise for Brandon. Money was tight, time was limited, and somehow he always needed it more. It started small. I had to quit dance class at 10 because we could only afford one hobby, and Brandon needed football. I wanted a new laptop for school, Brandon got a high-powered gaming rig instead, and I got his old hand-me-down. I studied in a corner of our den, while he got a desk in his own room, because apparently he needed a quiet place more than I did. I saved up for an iPad in high school. The week I could finally buy it, his tablet broke, and my parents suggested I lend him my savings because he needed a replacement more than I needed my first tablet. I'm still waiting to be paid back. So yeah, I was used to sacrificing for the good of your brother. But giving up my entire bedroom without so much as a phone call? That felt personal. I spent that weekend at home seething. By Sunday, I couldn't stand it. I ended my visit 2 days early, mumbling some excuse about a group project, and caught the Greyhound back to campus. On that bus ride, I made myself a promise. I was going to become independent as soon as humanly possible. If my parents thought I didn't need their home, then fine, I wouldn't need anything from them. Back at school, I channeled my anger into overdrive. I picked up extra shifts at the campus library. I aced my classes to keep my scholarships so I wouldn't have to ask mom and dad for money. They helped with what they could freshman year, but I was determined to cover the rest on my own. That summer, I didn't even go home. I stayed in Houston for a paid internship instead. For 3 months I crashed on a friend's couch. It wasn't glamorous, but I loved the freedom. Every paycheck went straight into savings. By sophomore year, I was living off campus in a cheap apartment with 2 roommates. It was a dump with creaky floors and occasional roaches, but it meant I never had to sleep in that den at home again. I didn't even return for Thanksgiving. I just couldn't bear to sit at my family's table and stare at the door of what used to be my room. Mom was hurt that I skipped the holidays, but I made excuses about schoolwork. After that, we only spoke on occasional short phone calls. Honestly, keeping my distance was easier than dealing with the pain. Brandon wasn't reaching out to me either. Why would he? He had my room, the bigger closet, the better view, and zero guilt. Sometimes I'd scroll social media and see him posting selfies in his new room, showing off the gaming setup and drum set Dad bought him, right where my dresser used to stand. I'd slam my phone down every time, heart pounding with anger. It was like seeing an ex flaunt a new relationship, except it was my own brother in my own room. I thought about telling my parents how badly they'd hurt me, but I knew it would be useless. They'd brush it off or tell me to get over it. So I focused on moving forward and building a life where I didn't have to depend on them. I worked, I saved, and by the spring of sophomore year I had scraped together enough for a down payment on a house. Between my job, my scholarships, and a small inheritance from Grandpa, I managed to buy a tiny 2-bedroom bungalow about 15 minutes from campus. I closed on it in August, just after my 20th birthday. It was nothing fancy, 70 years old, peeling paint, squeaky floors, but it had 2 bedrooms, 4 walls, and a roof that was mine. A couple of friends helped me paint and fix it up. I furnished it with thrift store couches and an old bed. I even set up the second bedroom as an office/guest room with a futon, just because I finally could. It was humble and homey and all mine. That first night there, lying on a mattress on the floor of my own bedroom, I felt a surge of joy and relief. I finally had a space that no one could take away from me. And I never told my parents. Not a word. They had no clue their daughter was now a homeowner. Part of me couldn't wait to see their faces when they found out, but I held on to that secret a little longer. They'd find out eventually on my terms. Meanwhile, word came that Brandon would be attending my college, DSU, in the fall. Mom started dropping hints about how the dorms are so expensive and small, suggesting that maybe I could help him out. I knew exactly where this was heading. Part of me still doubted they'd actually ask outright, but I shouldn't have. They sure did. 2 weeks before the new semester, Mom texted me, "Can we do a family call tonight? 7 p.m. I knew what was coming. I spent the whole day wound up, pacing my little living room and psyching myself up for the confrontation. By 7 p.m., I was ready. My heart pounded as I answered their video call, but I was done being afraid. Up popped my parents and Brandon on my phone screen, all squeezed together on the couch in our living room back home. Mom and Dad exchanged a quick glance. Dad cleared his throat. "So, as you know, your brother will be starting at DSU next week," he began. "The dorms there are pretty pricey and not that great, and since you're already living off campus." Mom jumped in, voice syrupy sweet. "We were thinking maybe Brandon could stay with you for a while. Just for freshman year, perhaps. We'd help out with expenses, of course. It would really mean a lot to us if you two were together, and it'd ease our minds knowing he's with you." There it was. They actually asked. I raised my eyebrows. "You want him to live with me? In my house?" Brandon was staring down at his hands. "I mean, I can pay you rent or whatever," he mumbled. "They just figured it'd save money and, we'd look out for each other." I let out a short laugh. "Easier for you, you mean?" I looked directly at my parents. "You guys gave away my room because I didn't need it. Now suddenly he needs something, and you expect me to go along with it." Mom's smile crumpled. "Sweetheart, that's not what we meant. We never wanted you to feel unwelcome or like we didn't love you. We just thought this made sense. You have space, and he needs a place." Dad nodded, trying to sound logical. "It's a practical solution. Family helps family. We figured you'd be happy to help your brother like we helped you." I couldn't help but laugh at that. My parents looked stunned, like they never expected to hear me refuse. "Helped me?" I echoed, a bitter edge to my voice. "You mean by giving away my room? By always putting his needs first?" I shook my head. "No, I'm not doing this." Dad's face hardened. "So you're saying you won't help your own brother? We're asking for one simple favor." "I'm saying no." My voice was ice. "He is not moving in with me." For a moment, my parents just stared at me in disbelief. Brandon finally looked up, anger flashing in his eyes. "You're serious? You're really gonna shut me out? I'm your brother. I shouldn't have to beg you for something like this." "Beg?" I snapped. "Brandon, I begged for a scrap of respect in that house and got nothing. You never had to beg for anything, it was all handed to you while I got the scraps. So I'm done. My answer is no." "Enough," Dad barked, his voice rising. "This is beyond selfish. After everything we've done for you, supporting you, paying for your education, you can't do this one thing." I felt a flash of hurt, but I stood my ground. "I appreciate what you did for me," I said firmly, "but that doesn't give you the right to dictate my life. It doesn't mean I owe you free housing for my brother. I'm not his caretaker, and I'm not sacrificing my home for him. Not after the way you all treated me." Dead silence. Mom was openly crying now, dabbing at her eyes. My brother looked away, jaw tight. "So that's it," Dad said bitterly. "You're turning your back on your family." I took a deep breath. If standing up for myself is turning my back, then yeah, I guess I am. I have to put myself first for once. Brandon let out a disgusted snort. "Wow, real nice, sis. So much for family loyalty." I shot back, "Funny, I was going to say the same to you when you took over my room without a thought." Dad threw up his hands. "We know where you stand now. Don't expect any support from us moving forward. I bit the inside of my cheek. I've been standing on my own 2 feet for a while. I'll be just fine. There was a long pause. My mom sniffled. We really hoped this would bring you two closer, but, fine. Her voice broke. I'm sorry it turned out this way, I said, and I meant it. But my answer is final. Dad shook his head, eyes full of disappointment. Take care of yourself, he said curtly. Yeah, bye, I replied softly, and clicked end call. The call ended. The screen went dark. I realized I was shaking all over. I set the phone down and sat on my couch, adrenaline coursing through me. Did that really just happen? I took a few deep breaths, my heart still racing but also feeling an immense relief. A flurry of texts came through a minute later, Mom's ringtone, then Dad's. I flipped the phone to silent and tossed it aside. For a brief moment I wondered if I'd been too harsh. But then I remembered all those nights I'd spent feeling unwanted, and any second thoughts disappeared. I stood and wandered through my quiet house, still coming down from the emotional high. In the spare bedroom, I paused. The moonlight fell across the futon in the corner, the one covered with Grandma's quilt. For a split second I felt a pang of guilt imagining my brother without a place to stay. But it vanished as quickly as it came. That futon is for friends I invite, not for someone who had already taken so much from me. Eventually I found myself back in the living room. I grabbed a cold Dr. Pepper from the fridge and collapsed onto my couch, in my home. I cracked it open and took a long sip. It tasted like freedom. I allowed myself a satisfied grin in the quiet. I pictured my brother back at my parents' house, probably sulking as they scrambled to find him a last-minute dorm. Maybe he'd even have to spend a few nights on that lumpy living room couch, the same one I'd slept on so many times. The thought was delicious. I raised my soda can in a little mock toast and whispered, "Nope, enjoy the couch, bro." Then I kicked my feet up and relaxed, feeling more at peace than I had in years.